Hello and welcome back to another episode of Gifting Good Oxide. Today we're looking at this PR that adds ceiling deers to the Git repository discovery. And to recap, in the moment you are doing anything with the Git repository, Git, you can also be in some subdirectory, like we are now actually in Git attributes, but you are still able to access the repository that is above that because Git searches upwards. And there should be some limit to this, ideally, to prevent going into slow network directories, because there will be some file access. We will try to read certain files, a bunch of them, and ideally there's some way to limit how far it looks. And this PR, it showed me some trouble because I realized that I don't really know how to implement this correctly. I didn't have a great intuition for it. And I don't think I have, but it's better now that I spent some time dealing with it. And we already went through one review round. And I think we can go through these things step by step and see how it should be. Okay, first, for context, what's this about? There was this to-do that is telling something about verbatim on Windows, and I was asking for a test because I also didn't really understand what it does, but now I do, because if we look at the test here, you see that the strip prefix, that's a special strip prefix that's just used here, I think, so you can just dump it here. This strip prefix removes this strange looking mount point question mark thingy that Canonicalize always puts in front of Windows. It's super confusing and frustrating as well because it essentially means that you have to canonicalize every path, otherwise it's not compatible. They seem to be different even though they're the same because one has this prefix, the other one doesn't. And yeah, I don't really know why this has to be, especially this question mark, but it's a valid path in Windows, so it's Windows, right? It's special. So here we go. The problem, I think, is that this is canonicalized and stripped, so now it looks like a normal canonicalized path. And yeah, let's just see what the panic actually is. So going to Windows, unfortunately, always takes a while for the test to be run because Windows is sharing the data with on some sort of share with the host machine, which is Mac OS, and it incorrectly detects changes where there are none. So it always rebuilds pretty much. It rebuilds everything in the work tree that is pulled in. Now, it actually, what's this? Okay, so it does not fail, right? So it found a Git repository because it ignored this path. So the intention was to give it a valid path that is canonicalized, but it's not canonicalized the same way. The path is canonicalized internally or something. What do we pass here as directory? We pass the base dir. The base dir is stripped. And the ceiling dir, no, the ceiling dir is stripped. Okay, so that's the thing. This is why these paths simply don't match. What I don't like about this is that it's a Windows special thing, and I think it can always happen that the ceiling directories, that they don't match for whatever reason. And I think this can be generalized. What gave me trouble is the actual implementation of this. Even though it's kind of simple, but it took me a while to think about that correctly. It's all about the ceiling height here. So what we do is we find the ceiling dirs that are actually a valid prefix of the base path. And this is really where the trouble happens, because you might have no matching ceiling dir. So ceiling dir that is actually a root of the base path, and the base path is the directory that we actually want to check. Let's call this potential git dir. And now we have to see if that's a problem or not, because I think we should not necessarily deal with this canonicalization, as we never really know, like, also what kind of thing this directory is. Is this, I mean, we absolutize it, which is a gentle version of canonicalization, just to have an easier time with going upwards a path. But we don't do any processing on these ceiling dirs yet. And now for us, it's really the key to this, I think, is to know how the ceiling dirs are formed, and ideally apply the same transformations on the ceiling dirs that are also in our directory, and not make any other assumptions. I think then these should match. And that's all. We pass in the current working directory here, which is always canonicalized. But I think on Windows, it does not contain this strange mount point thing, question mark. So on Windows, this should also work. But yeah, if you would run the ceiling dirs to the same absolutize function here, then I think it would be good nonetheless. In any case, whatever we do, I think once there are ceiling dirs, they can only be effective if there is any matching ceiling dir that is a root. And this is something that we of course naturally check for, because we strip the prefix, but it could be a sign of some incorrect roots for the path, so that they don't match even though they should. It could be a sign for such incorrect roots for some sort of bug that might be unattended. I think that's the crux here. Like, some people, they might think about it, how this is used. They might have a bunch of ceiling dirs and they always want them to be applied. And it's an error if this does not work, or they just don't care because they might be in a place where these ceiling dirs genuinely don't apply. And maybe this is something how it could be done, that there is some sort of flag that says if it should be fatal if we don't find a single ceiling dir that matches our potential git dir here. And this goes on top of applying the same transformation to the ceiling dirs, which right now we don't. Right now we just assume they're absolute. And maybe that's also nothing we really need if we were to pass them through our absolutize filter once. And this one, it returns a cow, so it can be efficient. If there's nothing to do, it will not allocate. And allocations here, I think we can also kind of ignore them. And ultimately, as you can see, the implementation here just boils down to how many steps we may go up. So the maximum height here. So everything we do here is temporary. And I think this is really how it can be done. This cursor, we actually use it only later. So let's put it here, because last time I was correcting this to use the cursor because that's now the source of truth to me, and that was corrected back to the dir here. So it's a bit of a, my action here is preventing a commit war, or however these things are called, and rather say, well, we don't need the cursor here, and avoid that confusing topic, and instead use the dir, which really is the source of truth, right? Discover something in this directory. And that's that. Good. So since we absolutize this directory, I think we should also absolutize the ceiling dirs, then we don't have to really care what it is. We will normalize them in some way, right? This is the kind of normalization we allow ourselves to do. And the canonicalization, yeah, that is about that happens later, potentially. And it helps us to kind of restore a short path. This absolutization, I think it doesn't affect this, even though I'm not so sure about this anymore. So see this whole thing, it's hard to visualize because you kind of have to keep in mind how the paths are formed, and yeah. So I'm not sure if this should canonicalize, if this should be true. But in any case, it will only affect kind of the shortness of our path later. But yeah, that's it. Let's run. So I think I have an idea here, plan, which would allow to get rid of that special case on Windows, because all we have to do is allow people to decide if that should be fatal or not, that there's no matching ceiling dir. And then if they say it should be fatal, then they have to make sure that the path they pass in are somewhat related. And then it's not on us anymore. But we do what we can by absolutizing, maybe. And ideally there's a test for that makes this necessary. Okay. So all tests run. And now let's make some changes here. Because the initial directory must be absolute, we assume it has been canonicalized. So the whole thing of canonicalization and being absolute, I think it's not necessarily correct. Because the path we get here, even after absolutizing it, it's not necessarily absolute. It can still be relative. It will only be absolute if we try to go up more, then we have components, and then it uses the current dir to have some more path components to go up into. And it's hard to actually determine whether that happened or not, but I think we can do better here to determine that. Because they're still kind of a prefix of each other if this has been canonic. If this is, this is also a misnomer now, because I think this should be if it's absolute or not, because if the current working directory has been prefixed, then it is absolute. So here we would turn this on because what? Because we reset. Yeah, I think there's also the confusing thing. This is a misnomer. This is supposed to be is absolute. Because here, if you run out of directories to go up, we will replace the cursor, which is the kind of directory, a path we work with. We replace that with the current working directory, and then we can go up even more. And then it's definitely absolute. And this tells us, okay, if you worked with relative path, we assume they're passed by the users and they're short and they're basically what you want to see. We don't just want to unconditionally canonicalize stuff or make it absolute. And if we did make it absolute, then we will try to shorten the path again for display later so that it doesn't seem too alien. Shortening the path means we kind of replace something with some other thing that is not absolute but relative and goes up a bunch of times, which usually is shorter. And this is what this does. Okay, got it. Helps to explain things to an audience, which kind of also explains it to yourself. Cool, so now I know what to do here. Is absolute. First of all, let's calculate is absolute correctly, because here we don't know. And I think it has been absolutized if the current working directory is in here somewhere. And we allow it to not be in a valid working directory, so that has to be considered. So current working directory as dref, and then we do some prefix check. By default, it's false. So if this is none, it definitely should be, the answer is no, this is not going to be absolute. At least not, you know, it could be absolute the path, we don't check that, but we don't care about it then. Or this means this also is still a misnomer. It's not only is absolute, but we made it absolute. Dear made absolute. Okay. So we did not make the dear absolute if there was a current working directory. And now we have the current working directory, and either the current working directory, yeah, strip prefix, you can just strip it, has the new dir as prefix. Oh. Or, so this has this prefix error. This is why we work with or else. Or the dir has the current working directory as prefix. Huh, what happened here? That went wrong. And now, right, actually not unwrap, but if it is okay, then we absolutize this. Otherwise we did not. Oh, and that should be here, I think. Yep, okay. So if this is okay, they're prefixing one or they prefix each other, and that's exactly what we want here. And now this is, I think, the correct computation. It should still work, but maybe we have a test failing now. Okay, let's get some error. We don't care about that. Everything is still green. That doesn't really, you know, I'm not sure that this is now definitely good just because it's all green. But let's say we didn't make it worse at the very least. What are these? Unnecessary qualification. Let's fix this. Yeah, it's a more recent feature that I really like. I was always wondering, like, are these imports still correct? And now the IDE tells you. Okay, canonicalized, we don't use that word anymore. Dir made absolute. So this is definitely, you know, definitely not true because we didn't make anything absolute here. And also this check, if dir is absolute, I don't want it, but I'm not yet ready to take it out. Okay. I think this is already worth a little commit because nothing broke, I believe. And we didn't really go into changes yet. So refactor. And with the magic of editing or pausing, this is now written. Nice. All right, first commit done. Then I think also let's get rid of this absolutize the path so that gets discover parent. Get discover parent? No, I think path parent actually gives us the parent directory. Path parent just strips off the last path component, which means it will not be what we expect when working with paths that contain ... Okay, so that kind of normalization we do. We would assume that the ceiling dirs are similarly normalized, but we don't know that. So I think that's something that we could do next. That we say, okay, these ceiling deers, we apply the same transformation to it, and then people can actually put, you know, double dot in it and do all kinds of things and get what they expect, because then it should work similarly. Otherwise it wouldn't, because we do this transformation for good reason, and we have to make sure these paths are as normalized as they can be, even though we don't resolve symlinks here, so there is still a source of error. Then as a next step, let's have a test that forces us to absolutize this. This is kind of an added feature, but I think it's worth it to do it. Oh, that's interesting here. Ah, special relative base. Haha. So what this could be something, because it says the repo can be discovered because the relative ceiling has nothing to do with the repo location. But in fact, with our change, it would have, because we would, they would be similar now. So the deer we want, that's the deer Wester. They're both the same, but they don't work because this one gets absolutized, the other one won't. Cool. So this test will break, I think. Goes up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Huh. I think it does only have to go up 4 times. It should still work. Does it still work? Like before? Oh. That's interesting. What? A relative path that climbs up. What? Okay, is this the same? Is this the test we're looking at here? Special relative base. It does. And it fails in line 313 here. And right, the base steer was supposed to have nothing to do with us. Interesting. Or no, I'm not getting it. No. But it's something. What's this directory? Repo path. Okay, now I get it. Actually, it's supposed to go above the repo path, so it finds the Git repository, the Git oxide repository that it expects on top. Okay. And that should not be equal. So it is supposed to not get to us. Okay. That's a complicated way of saying it, I guess. Because that's essentially the current working directory that will do that for us. And the base tier could be something that is deeper inside, like that's in the repo path somewhere. And then it won't match ever. Yeah, I think that's how this could be done. But then absolutize probably doesn't do anything for us. That's interesting. Oh, this is also canonicalized. This is why this works at all. Yeah, so now these tests have been changed to always canonicalize, which I would probably also try to roll back. Okay, let's do it step by step here. Base steer. Oh, that didn't make anything easier. Huh? Now we have a base steer and work deer, and one is canonicalized, the other one is not. That's what repro is current work dir. Yeah. It's interesting that this even works. I must say I'm more confused now than before this commit. Maybe I roll it back, the one with the canonicalize. Okay, the change has been rolled back, and we are back to the version that it had previously, minus these 6 upwards movements here. Is this 6? Yeah, I think so. That we used to additionally emphasize how this works. I think maybe can't hurt. So okay, so that now fails. It's interesting how things change with that reward. It might also be related. No, we didn't discover anything now. Maybe also because now we actually ignore one of these paths. We remember that previously, it should really just show me that line, shouldn't it? But it does not, so I have to scroll there myself. Yeah, so previously just used the base dir, which is deeper down than what we have, whereas here it uses essentially the current working directory and something that that is probably unrelated. I think this is the problem here, maybe. So yeah, okay, guessed right. So now this works and we have these dot dots. So the goal was to make a test that forces us to deal with absolutization of ceilings. And right now the ceiling simply does not have anything. Also, we kind of designed this one to avoid running into the ceiling at all. This is why we find the top level git oxide directory. Because we never see this local directory here. Okay. Something that I also did to make this work is ignore this test no root base, which was trying to test that we fail with directly not absolute. But yeah, notwithstanding the, let's continue with something that I know how to do, which is make it a failure that no ceiling dir was actually a root of the directory that we passed in. And this could probably be done somewhere here. Where there should be something that matches ceiling dir or error, something like that. Just a bool. And this is what it should do. Match ceiling dir or error. So if true, and I guess ceiling dirs is not empty, we expect that one has to match or it's an error. So this can safely be true. I think that's also that's probably desired. Like if you use this, there should be some match. Otherwise, you turn this off if you can't assure or if you don't control your these ceiling dirs. I think that can be it. Mostly. Okay, match ceiling dir or error. And this can now be this failing. This can now be this test here. Let's have the test first. Now that it hopefully compiles. compiles, but all tests work because what? There's some result that we don't test on. So we can say it should be some sort of error if the base dir does not match. Okay. So we canonicalize our work dir, no, our base dir, which is the ceiling dir. Let's make it like this. So this means we should actually be able to find something. However, because this work dir is relative, and we go up, we don't actually find, we don't match this with the now absolute ceiling dir. And this should trigger the error here. Which is no ceiling dir no matching ceiling dir, no ceiling dir found. Oh my god, words, names. Yeah, let's just call it this, no matching ceiling dir. No good return within ceiling, no matching ceiling dir. I don't know what we would want to say here, if there's any information we want to pass. Ceiling dirs, certainly not. Error. None of the past ceiling directories prefixed the git dir candidate, making them ineffective. Huh? Yeah, so annoying. This thing is so slow. Like, really? Okay, whatever. Whatever that means. It's probably not slow, it's probably a bug. The squiggly line. No matching ceiling dir. Now that should turn up here, yes. But it's not anything special, there's no data. And that test should fail. And it does, because we actually found a ceiling dir. Yeah, it doesn't tell us anything, it's just a true or false error here. Due to matches. All right, and should be straightforward to implement. So we would have to detect that we actually had found at least one prefix, and find ceiling height is the one that does it. I guess it could just tell us max height found ceiling dir matched. We want to return this, and then if no ceiling dir matched and no, yeah, if you can't remember the name you just made up, then it's not a good name. Match ceiling dir or error. Match ceiling dir or error. Then turn it into an error. No matching ceiling dir. Okay, and now about you. It's an internal method, so I'm okay returning just nondescript usize and bool here. So if this matched, we would know by now, by here. Can just turn this true. Let's keep the height and matched information. Okay. Did I call that matched? Yes. All right, that's all in an option. Oh, that's wonderful. True, if we had no match, then this is actually, okay, geez, this can be fully rolled back. So that will be an option none. Sometimes I have to also check this. Sometimes you want to think a bit more. So max height. So if max height is none, then we didn't match, and match we should match, then it will let us know. And it does not work. Why? So this must mean that it actually matched. Does it mean my inputs are different from what I thought they would be? Oh. I mean, we pass this, but it should not. This should be none because we don't actually match anything here. This does not strip. Yeah, let's run this test individually. Oh. And yeah, I think it's time to refactor this a little more. Nope. Oh, two failures. Okay. By default, this is true. Upwards ops. Now we want to set this to false. That's good. So we can test that this option actually works. So it kind of works, but not in that particular case. Okay, that's nice. Also, not to forget, let's quickly do this refactoring here. Okay. And now it's just this one, which is just unexpected inputs, I guess. So deer is this one, which is a bit above, but this path, it should not be, totally not be a prefix. Oh, it is, because it's some other. Has nothing to do, so now it's correct. It really has nothing to do with it. Okay. Yeah. Still not? Oh, yeah, right. It is this the right oh, no root base actually works, huh? That's the thing. It's just this one here that actually, okay, so I'm messing around here. So this just tells us that it didn't match anything, and that's also expected, right? So we just have to turn this off here, the special feature. Okay, got it. Okay, so now we test that it should flag as an error, but we also test that it should not. Let's run this on Windows real quick just to see if that works. Oh yeah, the should panic we removed. Ooh. So I think I removed that by accident and committed. I mean, I removed it intentionally, but committed, so that's kind of a mistake. But yeah, at least we see the error that occurs now with the changes. Yeah, this is fiddly, but also easily testable, just more fiddly because you also have to test on Windows, and because of this disk sharing thing issue, it just takes too long. Yeah. There's a compile error. Strip prefix. Okay. So what's the issue? Where's the path? Expected string found path buff 131. I also changed this. Maybe I changed it wrongly. Why does Git not? Oh yeah. Okay, fine. Anyway, all test screen except for Windows. Let's make this a commit here. And done. Good. So now there's lots of brokenness here, lots of to-dos. Let's see if you can strike them down one by one. First of all, the Windows compilation. And one might wonder if this really, if you can just test this on, compile this here. Why this has to be a string? Can't we just make this a path? And then we strip prefix on the path level. And this, maybe this can just be that, huh? Does this compile? See, and that's how this should work, I think. Now this runs fine. Yeah, don't stringify path if you don't have to. And now this should actually compile. We can see again in some time what the error is or would be. While waiting, I think it's worth going back to the absolutization that I wanted to add. And I was thinking maybe we can break an existing test unless one of these here is, yeah, so here nothing matches anyway. So we want a work dir that doesn't match unless it's getting absolutized. So maybe we can have a valid work dir here. Seeding prevents, see? So this is where we could try to come up with a version of this path that doesn't work unless it's absolutized. So what about /sum? So kind of the same thing, but there's a little bit of convolutedness inside that should prevent it from working. Now, if I build this and run the tests, it does fail. That's cool. No Git repository within ceiling. Right, that should match, but now we probably have some other error. Yeah, it doesn't really matter which one, but maybe we can take a quick look anyway. No matching ceiling there. Okay, good. That's exactly what we would expect. And now we force ourselves to absolutize it, and they are also absolutized. Okay, here we go. Absolutized, no, wrong file. Here we go. So here, where we strip the prefix here, the absolutization must be happening. Get path absolutize. It's an into cow that could be working already. Let's just let the compiler tell us. And then there is an optional current working directory, which we will probably get passed here. What's this supposed to be? Yeah, let's just try the most obvious, an option path. And option impl path buff, which is that. Yeah. Okay, that should be working. Then we get what? We always get success. We get a cow, which we can strip prefix with using sref, but let's see, maybe this automatically works as well. Now for the compiler errors, we do have a cwd as dref, so we can reuse it, and it does compile. And now the test is green. That's nice. All right, so now I think now that should be it. And this means that on Windows, oh, we don't care anymore if there is a mismatch in ceiling directories because of some strange question mark mount thingy. Then we will just it will just throw an error and force the user to think about their roots. And we don't do anything special. And if we do something special, we do it to all the paths consistently. And that's it. That's how this can be implemented, I think, without going crazy. And doing this also helped us to better understand the words and what's going on here. And that's the basics. I'm not so super happy with a few things here. That just is about naming mainly. And about the test itself, like are we testing something new or not? So we will go and look at this. But first, let's see what Windows does. Windows actually runs now, which, let's see if it still runs. So that was originally expected to fail, but now it does not anymore. Yeah, let's just rebuild. And I don't think it's testing anything special because we strip the prefix, we don't canonicalize anything. I would expect this to fail because it doesn't have a matching ceiling dir anymore. It did not fail. Okay, did it run anything? It did. That's cool, but also not cool. So can I just run this here and it just works as well? Probably. Yeah. So it doesn't test anything special anymore. Do I need to strip the prefix? I mean, here it doesn't do anything, but here. Now I would expect it to maybe, yeah, I think that's the thing, huh? The base, what dir do we pass? Base dir join. Okay, so these are, no, they're both canonicalized. Really? I don't understand. Like, what is what here? This should match. Should this still work? Okay, it still works fine. Good, good, good. Like it. So it doesn't really test anything anymore, which means we have, I mean, nothing we don't test already. No root base. So that's good. One less thing to think about. And now there was a to-do here still. This one. This is not relevant. Find the number of components parenting the base path before the first directory. And ceiling dir's base path needs to be an absolute path, so that's not true. Potential git dir, that's also now called differently. Potential git dir needs to be absolutized, and there's nothing about stuff being discarded. I think that's nicer. And again, just trying to not unnecessarily process paths that can change the way paths look compared to how they were passed to the function itself. which is confusing usually to the user. And ultimately users may see this. Okay. Lastly, no root base. This is no matching ceiling deers. So test no matching ceiling deers errors by default, because this is just the default values. Okay, this canonicalize. This we do only to make sure they don't match. And we can describe that as well. The canonicalized ceiling deer doesn't have the same relative root as, or the same root as get deer candidate and can never match, even though technically they would match, but not anymore. And that could be a legitimate error on the side of the caller, so by default we do call it out. And that's that. So now special relative. These are special because what does it really test? The repo can be discovered. What does it really test here? Yeah, so absolute and relative shouldn't really matter anymore, but we can for fun canonicalize stuff. Multiple. Yeah, let's try to find a good place for that, where we can apply canonicalization, but it must, the canonicalization we have here must be an existing path as well. We don't have our own real path yet that would allow us to canonicalize as much as possible without failing if the actual thing pointed to does not exist. So this is not a good candidate. I wonder if it should really be yeah. And I mean, this definitely tests that nothing matches, right? No matching ceiling deer error can be suppressed. This is what this really tests. And what does this test? More restrictive ceiling deers overrule less restrictive ones. And that's kind of its own test, huh? More restrictive ceiling deers overrule less restrictive ones. Let's take this here. And that needs a bunch of preamble. Maybe that. And that. Oop. Okay. Okay. So now the only less descriptive ones are single and special relative, which should be changed to something more descriptive. Special relative, difficult. Single might be easier. Single. Ceiling deer should allow us to discover the repo. Ceiling deer is the work deer. Okay, so this matches. And it matches because deer is, or the work deer is the top level essentially. Okay. So get deer candidate within ceiling allows discovery. And then ceiling dir prevents discovery as it ends one level too early. And they're also absolutized. Okay. So here this could be its own test. Get your candidate outside. This is then outside. Yeah. Ceiling dir limits prevent this get dir discovery. Yeah. Ceiling dir limits are respected and prevent discovery. Yeah. Let's call it like this. Now we just need that preamble again. Okay, huh? Okay. Okay, cool. Now there's only one left, one more to go. Special relative. These are special because all of our base paths are relative on us. Yeah, that was my comment, and I don't think it really applies. Special relative. So that really says that this is absolutized, and this is I mean, this basically means it doesn't match. It doesn't match because we don't absolutize. Yeah, we could say that ceiling dirs are not or are not processed differently than the dir candidate. And this means we do not canonicalize this, which would probably make it, which would make it work. But then we would have to canonicalize everything. This is why we have to ignore non-matches and not make this an error. The repo can be discovered because the relative seeding has nothing to do with the repo location. Not true. But we don't know that it has something to do, because the relative seeding doesn't look like it has something to do with the repo, with the candidate. Okay. So now let's give Windows another whirl. But that could be it. That should all be working now, and there's no strange names anymore. Furthermore, the upward search, this test here, it definitely needs to be tested more. I just tested this manually in the terminal. But that's unrelated to this commit. To do, yeah, it's also me. Some comment here. Okay, looks good to me now. Save defaults. Implementation all tested. And the actual ceiling check is just this, which is really, really simple, which I love about that. So I think this could be another commit, provided that Windows works, and it actually does work. So we only have issues related to trust level, and that's related to permissions, because permissions are, it doesn't own this stuff. This is why it has permission issues or trust issues. the test has trust issues because it doesn't get to own the things, which it does if it's locally cloned. So everything is good. Yeah, and all we did was one last run. Oh, and also absolutizing things, right. All right, and that's it for this review, I presume. So I think it's okay to actually merge this now. And to do that, I think I should have another commit that enforces a changelog change, because it's also a breaking change technically. We changed the options there. Not that it matters too much, but it's okay to keep up with the habit. So I think to get another opportunity for a commit, we can just change the crate, adjust the crate status, git discover, handle linked work trees, find a good repository searching upwards, and then we have ceiling deer support. Define ceilings that should not be surpassed. Okay. Anything else? It's not yet available in Git repository. Doesn't use that, but one day it will, for sure. Maybe make a note, Git repository. Discovery. Yeah, it's actually a special form of discovery where it applies environment variables as well. It's not really discovery then. Yeah, I don't know how to turn that into a node just yet. But yeah, let's just put it there as aspirational. Support for Git ceiling directories. Is it called this? No, not here. This. Git ceiling directories. Not quite yet. And we can probably find a spot for this. Okay, so that's a commit. And we just used this to say that we added discover opts. Actually, it's discover options, right? This discover upward. What is this type? Discover upwards options. Yeah, discover upwards options. Okay. And that now has ceiling deers and the other one we just don't mention. Like this. And we call it a breaking change because we add a field. Depending on how you use these options, this will break your build, even though it's an easy fix. But let's do it by the book. All right, let's merge it. Enforce a commit and see that we push this. Oh, yeah, right. Should have run Clippy before. Let's roll this back. And run Clippy now. Oh, so much. redundant use of rec. Instead, just what? Say again. Come again. How do I get this back? Is it 5? Is it 6? 7? No. 8? No. Okay, let's just rebuild. Okay, so wait again. Ah, so difficult. Does this? What's the problem? Ah, I think it wants to say that we can just do it like this. And it's not only wanting to say that, it's actually saying that. Just me not getting it. Yeah, with this undocked window, it's a bit difficult here. It's always disappearing. Okay. So maybe now this is fixed. Redundant slicing. I think maybe this is what it means, huh? Nope. Okay, I have to read this now. I just passed the hash. Okay. Can do that. Actually, we can't. What's this? What's hash? It's a buffer. So why does that not work? Because buffer is... That's interesting. What? Ah, it's actually an array. It's just a buffer that's big enough to hold this. So it's not actually unnecessary, this slicing, no? This is also something that came with the latest version of Clippy. I've just updated. Yeah, so I think that's a false positive because that does not work. We tried. Okay, Clippy, I'm sorry. That's a bit sad. And redundant slicing. Allow Clippy redundant slicing. Okay, I think I have to add it here, huh? Oh, it did not pick it up. Okay, then let's put it one higher. Okay, good. Clippy is happy. Thanks, Clippy. And now let's also check docs just to be sure. It's usually a source of errors, but here we didn't link anything, so I think we're good. Okay, merge, no FF. Okay, and now we get to make the push. Okay, with the power of pausing, now this commit message has been written, and once all the tests run through, I should be able to commit this, push it to main. I think git attributes for some reason now is bigger than it was before, maybe even more. So that will make the push fail. But yeah, that's a minor fix that we don't have to record. Thanks for watching and have a good day.